Hi guys. All right, so what you guys are gonna do for Tuesday is I have this sheet attached in Documents. You can print it. If you don't have a printer, all you have to do is just kind of get a piece of paper, draw 3 rectangles with 4 boxes in them, and you're gonna be working on value. So what value is? It's the degree or of lightness or darkness. So we want to see an obvious change in our values. You could also think of it as shadows. So the first box, I know it's a little small on this camera, but it says stippling. What stippling is, it's just a bunch of dots clustered together. For this, you could use a pencil if you want. I'm going to use a marker. I just find it a little bit easier. And in the left side of the boxes, that's going to be your lightest value. So if I was going to stipple in a light value, I would maybe only add 3 dots. And then as I go to my middle one, the more dots I add, the darker the value is going to be. So I added a little bit more, and as I get to the end, I'm going to add even more, all the way up until the end. The closer my dots are, the darker my value is going to appear. I want you guys to try to have some control over your hands, so try to stay inside your box a little bit. It doesn't have to be a very even layout of dots. You can kind of see I'm just going a little bit crazy with it and just stippling right on top. And you should see an obvious change of our lightest value transitioning to our darkest value because I've added more dots and they're layered closer together. Cross-hatching, I'm still going to stick with my marker for this one. Cross-hatching, it's kind of like a tic-tac-toe board or a hashtag mark. I'm just going to go in and fill up my box. I'm going to start very simple, just a couple lines. And same with stippling, the more lines I add, the darker my value is going to start to appear. And as I get kind of closer to the end, I'm going to add more lines closer together. And then all the way at the end, maybe what I'll do is I'll have my lines very, very close together. I'll have them go maybe 3 different directions. So that's pretty clearly a darker value. I could kind of go back in with more lines just to really darken it up. And again, this doesn't have to look perfectly even with your lines that you make. Shading, you're gonna have to use a pencil for shading. I know a lot of you guys were trying different ways to shade. With your pencil, you only need a number 2 if you have drawing pencils. That's amazing. Unfortunately, we don't have them. And I want to see a very clear change in value. When you're shading with your pencil, you're choosing one direction to color with. So I'm going to start with my light value. I'm just going side to side. I'm staying inside my box. And I'm going in nice and smooth. And I can show you a little trick of how to make the lines look a little bit smoother just with the tissue. So I have this. Now as I go a little bit farther on, I'm going to be pressing harder. And this is where you want to start really, really light. Because if you start a little bit with too much pressure for your values, it's not going to show a really much of a clear change. And you can even go back in and make things darker. It's a little bit harder to make things lighter. I know you guys mostly all have erasers at home, but even with an eraser, you're not going to get it as white as it used to be with the paper. So I'm going in here with my medium value. I'm pressing a little bit harder. I'm still only going one direction, side to side. This is where you want it to look nice and smooth. I'm not scribbling all over, and I want it to be a very clear difference. So I'm going to go back in. And then my darkest value, I can go in, and this is, I'm just pressing really, really hard. Not too hard, so hopefully I don't break my point of my pencil and I don't rip a hole in my paper, but you just want to go in and shade it. This should be entirely black. I shouldn't see any white from our paper underneath. So you could see you could do this pretty quickly. It should not take too much time. And then this, I feel like I don't see too much of a change, so I'm just going to go back in and darken this up a little bit with another layer. So I want to see an obvious difference in values. If I want to get rid of any of my pencil mark and I want it to be smoother, you could just take a clean tissue and you could just go right on and rub on top of your pencil lines, and it's just going to smooth it all out. You can even do that for the entire thing, and it's just going to smooth out your shading a lot. It does get messy, so it could get on your hand. It will kind of smudge on your tissue a little bit. You can even practice making values just with the extra residue on the tissue. Print this out. Again, if you don't have a printer, you're just going to have to draw in these boxes yourself, and you're just going to practice stippling, which is the dots, cross hatching, which is our lines, and then shading, just different values with your pencil. I'll post a closer picture of this so you could see it, probably in the attachments, and this should be due on Tuesday.